Rain ran down the glass walls of the Hanyul Crown Hotel when the laughter started. Seo-rin was on her knees. A tray of crystal flutes had shattered beside her shoes. Pink champagne bled across white marble. A diamond brooch glittered in the spill. Guests in black silk and gold cufflinks stepped back as if poverty itself had splashed onto them. She stole it. The accusation came fast, sharp, eager. Seo-rin looked up, her breath caught. General Manager Park stood above her, with a napkin pressed to his sleeve, disgust twisting his mouth. "I saw it in her hand," Park said. He had not. But nobody wanted truth. They wanted a target. The woman in the ruined gown pointed with a trembling finger. "She bumped into me. Then my brooch vanished. Search her." A few guests laughed. One man lifted his phone. Another whispered, "These service girls always look innocent." Seo-rin kept one hand around the strap of her old work bag. The other pressed against the wet floor to steady herself. She could still hear the crack of glass. She could still feel the hard shove that had sent the tray tipping into her. She had not bumped anyone. Somebody had hit her shoulder from behind. Park knew it. That was why he looked calm. "Open the bag," he said. Seo-rin stood slowly. Her uniform was plain grey. Her shoes were cheap. Her name tag was scratched from years of cleaning chemicals and steel edges. Every eye in the ballroom stayed on her. The violin quartet kept playing. That made it worse. "No," Seo-rin said. Park smiled without warmth. "Then you admit it." "I admit nothing." A woman near the champagne tower gave a thin laugh. "She has attitude." Another guest leaned close to his wife. "These people always do." Seo-rin swallowed hard. She wanted to keep her face blank. She wanted to stand straight. She wanted, at the very least, to survive this without begging. But humiliation had a smell, hot, metallic, public. It made her think of hospital bleach, debt collectors. The afternoon her mother died while apologizing to people who had never once apologized to her. Park extended his hand. "Your bag." Seo-rin tightened her grip. Then the ballroom doors opened. Silence moved faster than sound. Men in dark suits stepped in first. Not hotel security, real security. The kind that scanned exits before taking a breath. The kind that made the wealthy remember they were not the highest people in the room. Then Kang Min-jae entered. Conversations stopped in the middle of words. Even the quartet faltered. Min-jae did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The room bent around him, the way flame bends air. Black suit, white shirt, no tie, rain still on his shoulders, his face unreadable, his gaze cold enough to end most arguments before they began. He was the vice chairman of Jaekyung Holdings. He was also the man people discussed in lowered voices when the staff elevators were crowded and nobody wanted cameras to read their lips. Tycoon, heir, investor, fixer, and, in quieter circles, something darker. The man who never made a scene. The man who never intervened for strangers. His eyes moved over the broken glass, the champagne, the brooch, the ring of guests. Then they stopped on Seo-rin. She felt it like impact. Park straightened at once. "Vice Chairman Kang, I apologize for this disruption. One of the cleaners..." Min-jae raised one hand. Park stopped. The room held its breath. Min-jae walked across the marble without hurry. Past the guests, past the ruined dress, past the diamond brooch still glittering by Seo-rin's shoe. He stopped in front of her. Seo-rin kept her chin up. It was stubbornness more than courage. He looked at her face, then at her wrist. A faded white scar crossed the inside of her left wrist. Most people never noticed it. A blade of old memory, small, pale, forgettable. Min-jae stared at it too long. Something changed behind his eyes. Not softness, recognition. "You," he said. The word was low, almost disbelieving. Seo-rin frowned. She had never met him, not like this. Park cleared his throat. "Sir, she has been caught taking..." Min-jae turned his head slightly. Park fell silent again. Then Min-jae did the one thing no one in that ballroom expected. He took off his suit jacket. He stepped closer, and he draped it over Seo-rin's shoulders. Gasps rippled around the room. Seo-rin froze. Min-jae looked at the guests as if they had all become tedious. No one searches her. Nobody moved. No one touches her. Park blinked. "Sir?" Min-jae's voice stayed calm. That made it worse. "This woman once saved my life." The violinist dropped her bow. A glass slipped from someone's hand in the back. The woman in the torn pink gown stared open-mouthed. Park's face drained of color. Min-jae took one more step until he stood between Seo-rin and the entire ballroom. Then he said it clearly, publicly, irrevocably. "She is not your thief." His gaze cut through the room. "She is my savior." Silence swallowed everything. The next revelation would force them to remember her name. Seo-rin hated the weight of expensive fabric. The suit jacket on her shoulders smelled faintly of rain, cedar, and something clean and severe. It made every eye in the ballroom feel heavier. Min-jae did not look at her again. He crouched instead. A billionaire in polished black shoes lowered himself to the marble floor beside spilled champagne. 2 fingers lifted the diamond brooch from the puddle. Under it lay a tiny strip of double-sided adhesive. He held it up. It was planted. No one answered. He looked at the woman in pink. "Your brooch did not fall because of her." The woman's mouth opened, closed.
I didn't know.
Park tried to recover first. "Someone must have—" "Yes," Min-jae said. "Someone must have." He handed the brooch to one of his men. "Review all ballroom footage from the last 20 minutes. The bodyguard bowed slightly. "Yes, sir." Park forced a smile. "We can handle that internally." Min-jae's expression did not change. That was not a suggestion. A nervous murmur ran through the guests. Seo-rin felt her pulse in her throat. She should have been relieved. Instead, she was afraid. Powerful help was still power. It always came with a price. Min-jae straightened. "What is your name?" "Yoon Seo-rin." He repeated it once, quieter, like a locked door opening inside him. "Come with me." Park stepped forward. "Sir, the investors are waiting in the East Hall for your address." "Then they can wait." The room parted. Seo-rin did not move. Min-jae turned back. She met his eyes. "Why?" A few guests leaned in. Desperate for scandal, hungry for details. Min-jae held her gaze. "Because 7 years ago, on a road outside Guri, I was bleeding out in the rain. Men were hunting me. A girl in a cleaning uniform dragged me into a laundry truck, pressed her scarf into my side, and kept me alive until dawn." Seo-rin's breath snagged. Rain, blood, a dark road, a face half covered in mud and headlights. A young man with a knife wound and too much arrogance left in him to die quietly. She remembered. Not his full face. Not then, just fragments, a hand crushing hers in pain, a gold signet ring, a fevered voice asking who had sent her, and her own answer, impatient and frightened. "If you can breathe, you can choose, so choose." Min-jae's voice dropped. "You said those words to me." The ballroom blurred for a moment. Seo-rin had said that. Her nursing professor had said it to every student during trauma drills. Seo-rin used it once that night because she had been 21 and terrified and angry that a stranger might die at her feet. She had hidden him because men with flashlights were searching the roadside, and one of them had shouted, "Finish it before the chairman hears." She had not known who he was. Her mother had helped her move him into the back loading yard of an old motel. At dawn, black vehicles had arrived, serious men, dangerous men. Seo-rin had left before they could take her name. She had tried to forget it. Min-jae extended his hand. "Come with me, Seo-rin." His use of her name was gentle enough to alarm her more than cruelty would have. She followed. Because everyone was watching. Because refusing him here would be another spectacle. Because a part of her needed to know how he had found her now. And because Park's face had gone pale with fear. As they walked out, someone whispered, "She's just a cleaner." Another answered, "Not anymore." The next revelation was waiting in a private room upstairs. Beat on the 31st floor overlooked the river. Rain laced the windows. The city glowed below like 1,000 private secrets. Seo-rin stood near the door. She kept Min-jae's jacket around her because her uniform was damp from the champagne spill and because returning it too quickly felt unsafe. Min-jae poured water into a glass and held it out. She hesitated. "It's water," he said. "I assumed so." A brief shadow touched his mouth. Not a smile, almost one. She took the glass. Her hands were steady now. Min-jae remained standing across from her. "You recognize the road?" "Yes." "And me?" "Not at first." He nodded once. Reasonable. She studied him properly. He looked older than the bleeding stranger she remembered. Harder, better dressed, more dangerous because he no longer looked like a man life could surprise. "How did you know it was me?" she asked. "The scar." He glanced at her wrist. "You cut yourself opening the truck latch. Blood got into the bandage you made for me." Seo-rin looked down. She had forgotten that. He continued. "And the words. If you can breathe, you can choose. I spent months trying to find the woman who said them. You failed. You vanished." Her mouth tightened. That was the point. He seemed to understand more than he said. He moved to the table where a slim black box sat unopened. "General Manager Park has been trying to remove you for weeks." Seo-rin's eyes sharpened. "How do you know that?" "My people started asking questions the moment he accused you. You work quickly." "I stay alive by doing that." The sentence landed harder than a boast would have. Seo-rin set the glass down. "I don't need gratitude, Vice Chairman." "What do you need?" The answer came too fast. "Time." That interested him. "For what?" Seo-rin did not respond. Min-jae waited. He had the kind of patience powerful men learn when they know silence can do work for them. A knock sounded. His aide entered. Cho Do-hyun, mid-30s, precise, alert, eyes that missed little. "Sir." He placed a folder on the table. Ballroom footage confirms a server bumped Ms. Yoon from behind. He disappeared through the service hall immediately afterward. No employee file matches the face. Park, Seo-rin thought. Or someone above him. Do-hyun continued. Also, the brooch was removed from Mrs. Han's dress in the powder room 3 minutes before the incident. Housekeeping trolley camera captured a hand placing it on the tray skirt. Min-jae looked at Seo-rin. "You were framed. I figured that part out." Do-hyun glanced at her, faintly surprised by the tone. Min-jae asked, "Who wants you disgraced?" Seo-rin held his gaze. "If I knew that for certain, I wouldn't still be wearing this uniform." Min-jae's eyes narrowed. "You came to this hotel for a reason." There it was, the real question. Seo-rin looked past him to the river. Her reflection floated in the black glass. Thin, tired, unimpressive, easy to dismiss. That had always been useful. "My mother worked in this hotel," she said at last. 22 years. Min-jae said nothing. "She died 11 months ago." A pause. "Before she died, she left me a storage key." Do-hyun shifted slightly. Seo-rin continued. "She told me if anything ever happened to her, I should never trust management. She said if I wanted the truth, I had to go where powerful people hide the things they think cleaners don't notice." Min-jae's voice turned very quiet. "And what truth were you looking for?" Seo-rin met his eyes. "Why my mother spent the last week of her life terrified." The rain hit harder against the glass. Somewhere below, thunder rolled over the river. Min-jae looked at Do-hyun. "Leave us." The aide bowed and exited. When the door shut, Min-jae said, "What did you find?" Seo-rin did not answer immediately. Then she reached into her bag. Instead of makeup or a phone charger or the small, ordinary items people expected from women like her, she pulled out a slim metal USB drive taped to the underside of a cheap notepad. Min-jae's gaze dropped to it. "My mother hid this inside a vacuum filter casing in the old executive laundry room," Seo-rin said. "The room was sealed off 5 years ago. Tonight, someone learned I had it." Min-jae stepped closer. "What's on it?" "I haven't been able to open the main files." She lifted her chin. "They're encrypted." "For whom?" "That," Seo-rin said, "is what I was trying to learn before your ballroom performance." His stare held hers for a long second. Then he said, "From this moment, you do nothing alone. I'm not asking for protection. You're getting it. And if I refuse, then I will protect you against your will." Seo-rin almost laughed. "That sounds illegal. Many effective things do." For the first time that night, a real smile tugged at her mouth before she could stop it. Min-jae saw it. It disarmed him more than the knife scar on his side ever had. The next revelation arrived, hidden in a dead woman's key. Storage room was beneath the old West Wing. Few people used that corridor now. The carpet smelled of dust and stale polish. Most guests never knew the wing existed. Management kept it dark because the lighting budget had gone elsewhere and because closed doors invited fewer questions than renovation signs. Min-jae walked beside Seo-rin. Two men followed at a distance. She hated that. But she hated walking blind more. "You could have sent your people," she said, "and missed the chance to see where you've been sneaking around." She glanced sideways. "You're enjoying this too much." "No, I'm worried too much." That shut her up for 3 steps. At the end of the corridor, she unlocked a narrow steel door, hidden behind a linen cabinet. The room beyond was cramped. Old industrial washers, shelving units, broken carts, discontinued detergent brands, forgotten smell. Her mother's smell, too. Clean cotton, steam, soap that never fully left the skin. Seo-rin's throat tightened. Min-jae noticed the way her hand paused on the doorframe, but said nothing. She moved to the back wall. Behind stacked crates sat a rusted locker with a damaged handle. She knelt and inserted a second key into the bottom panel, not the obvious lock. A section clicked open. Inside was a fireproof document pouch. And an envelope. Seo-rin stared at it. Her name was written on the front in her mother's handwriting. She had not seen it before. Her fingers shook once before she opened it. Inside was a single folded page. "My daughter, if you are reading this, then they already know I did not destroy what I found. Do not trust Park. Do not trust Director Cha. If Vice Chairman Kang ever finds you before they do, give him the silver seal, not the paper first. He must hear everything in the right order. If he does not find you, take the file to Prosecutor Lee Min-suk only. Remember this. I did not keep the truth to become brave. I kept it because good people died when weak people stayed silent. And forgive me for the life this will force on you. Mother." Seo-rin lowered the page slowly. Min-jae's voice was flat. "Director Cha?" "Hanyul Crown's executive director," Seo-rin said. "Park answers to her." He knew the name, of course. Cha Moon-hee. Elegant, board member, old family friend. The woman who had sat beside his father at charity galas and spoken to staff as if generosity were a burden. She was also his uncle's closest ally in the hotel division. Seo-rin opened the pouch. Inside lay 3 items. A silver seal carved with the old Jaekyung crest, a second USB drive, and a stock certificate in the name of Han Myok. Min-jae took 1 step forward. Seo-rin blinked. "What?" He pointed to the certificate. "Read the percentage." She did. Her voice came out thin. 9%. 9% of Hanyul Hospitality Group. Not a clerical reward, not an employee bonus. A block large enough to change a vote. Seo-rin looked up. "My mother was a housekeeper." Yes, Min-jae's face had gone still in the dangerous way she was starting to recognize, which means someone has lied to you for a very long time. He held out his hand. The seal. She hesitated, then passed it over. He turned it in his fingers and inhaled once through his nose, as if memory had become physical. "This belonged to my father." Seo-rin's heart kicked. "Why would your father's seal be with my mother?" Min-jae answered without looking away from it. "Because my father only entrusted this to people he believed would protect his son more than his company." Seo-rin went cold. A memory opened. Her mother, years earlier, crouching in their tiny kitchen after midnight, saying in a tired voice, "If the rich ever remember you, be careful. They remember ownership faster than kindness." Min-jae lifted his eyes. My father knew about the attack on me. Seo-rin frowned. The road attack. He nodded once. Not before it happened, after. And my mother. Your mother must have known more than I was told. Do-hyun entered hurriedly from the corridor. Sir. Min-jae did not turn. What? General Manager Park has left the hotel. So has Director Cha. Their phones are off. The silence in the old laundry room deepened. Seo-rin folded the letter carefully. They know, she said. Min-jae slipped the seal into his pocket. Yes. Do-hyun looked between them. There's something else. The encrypted drive references a file name labeled Guri 7. Min-jae's jaw hardened. 7 years ago. The roadside attack. The next revelation had just acquired a date. Yoon Seo-rin had spent 7 years pretending that night had been an accident of fate. Now it became evidence. Min-jae's private tech team worked from a secured office on the hotel's top floor. Screens lit the dark like aquarium glass. Files scrolled. Password attacks ran. Encryption keys broke apart under patient machines and impatient men. Seo-rin sat at the end of a conference table in borrowed clothes from the hotel boutique. Simple black blouse, dark slacks, nothing with labels. She had refused jewelry. She had refused a stylist. She had refused food twice before finally accepting soup, because dizziness was not a strategy. Min-jae stood behind the analysts. He barely moved. That unsettled everyone more than anger. One of the technicians looked up. We're in. A folder opened. Photos. Time-stamped spreadsheets. Internal memos. Audio clips. And a video file marked Guri 7 mast. Min-jae said, play it. Static flashed. Then grainy footage appeared. A rainy service road. Headlights. Figures moving near an overturned black sedan. The angle came from a warehouse loading camera across the road. Seo-rin leaned forward. A man stumbled from the sedan holding his side. Min-jae, younger, bleeding, barely upright. 3 men advanced toward him. Another voice sounded on the audio track, not from the scene, from a phone recording stitched over the video. Make sure the boy doesn't get back in the car. Seo-rin froze. Min-jae did not react visibly, but the room temperature seemed to drop. The voice continued. Do it cleanly. No family names. No bodies tied to us. Seo-rin looked at him. You know that voice. Yes, he said. Who? He answered without hesitation. My uncle, Kang Seong-ho, board vice chair, public philanthropist, political donor, man of tasteful ties and ruthless patience. The audio crackled again. If he lives, the voice said, my brother's shares stay with him. If he dies, succession becomes negotiable. The clip ended. No one in the room breathed for a moment. Seo-rin sat back slowly. That's why those men were hunting you. Yes. You told the police. There was no police file. His eyes stayed on the dark screen. The evidence disappeared. Witnesses vanished. My father moved me abroad for treatment and called it a robbery. Why? Because if the board knew his brother had tried to kill his son, the company would fracture publicly. Investors would circle, prosecutors would bargain, enemies would feed. Seo-rin absorbed that, so he buried it. He contained it. And left your uncle standing. Min-jae finally looked at her. My father believed blood could still be managed. Seo-rin's voice sharpened. And your uncle believed blood could be spilled. That earned another almost smile. Bitter this time. The analyst opened the next file. Payment records, shell companies, service vendors. Do-hyun leaned in. These are cleaning subcontractors. Seo-rin straightened. My mother complained about those contracts. She said the hotel paid triple normal rates. A column highlighted on screen. Through 3 shell companies, money flowed from Hanyul Hospitality into medical supply firms and offshore accounts. Signatories, Director Cha Moon-hee. Authorized board liaison, Kang Seong-ho. Min-jae said, Park handled the operational side. Seo-rin thought of the manager's polite contempt. The way he checked staff lockers personally, the way he always spoke gently before punishing someone. "Then why frame me now?" she asked. Do-hyun replied, "Because you found this." Min-jae folded his arms. "Or because they learned who your mother really was." Seo-rin looked at the stock certificate on the table. What was she? "Not just a housekeeper," he said. "A witness." Outside, thunder rolled again. The analyst clicked into a scanned, handwritten statement. Han Mi-ok, signature visible. The first line read, "I testify that on the night of the Guri incident, I received Vice Chairman Kang Min-jae from my daughter and saw the wound inflicted by a knife. The men searching for him included one of Director Cha's drivers." Seo-rin shut her eyes. Her mother had known and said nothing, or tried to say it where the truth could survive. Min-jae read the statement to the end in silence. When he finished, he placed both hands on the table and bowed his head for a single second. It was not weakness. It was grief, finding a crack. "My father kept this hidden," he said. Seo-rin opened her eyes. "Or someone kept it from him." Min-jae looked up sharply. She continued, "If your father trusted my mother enough to give her a seal and shares, why would he then ignore her witness statement?" Do-hyun said softly, "He might never have seen it." That landed, because it meant the betrayal did not end with the attack. It continued afterward, inside the house, inside the company, inside the rooms where papers were supposed to keep men honest. Min-jae straightened. "Find Prosecutor Lee Min-seok." Do-hyun nodded. "Yes, sir. And bring me every personnel file tied to Director Cha, Park, and my uncle from the last 10 years. Seo-rin rose from her chair. "I'm coming with you." "No, you don't get to sideline me now. I get to keep you alive." She stepped closer. "My mother died for these files." Min-jae's gaze hardened. "And I nearly died because everyone underestimated how far my family would go. I will not make that mistake twice." For one charged second, neither of them moved. Then Do-hyun's phone rang. He checked it. His expression changed. "Sir." His voice was controlled, which meant the news was bad. "There's been an incident at Miss Yoon's apartment building." Seo-rin went still. "What kind of incident?" Do-hyun looked at her. "Your younger brother is missing." The next revelation was no longer in a file. It was in the hands of people who knew exactly where to hurt her. Goon. June's room still had the window open. Rain had blown onto the sill. A comic book lay on the floor where it had been dropped. His hearing aids case sat beside the lamp, untouched. Seo-rin felt the world tilt. Neighbors spoke too quickly. 2 bodyguards searched the stairwell. Do-hyun coordinated calls near the door. Min-jae moved through the small apartment with the terrible calm of a man who had entered crime scenes before. Seo-rin pushed past him into June's room. Her brother's sketchbook was open to a half-finished drawing of their mother. Her chest tightened so hard she thought she might choke. "He would not leave on his own," she said. Min-jae answered from behind her, "No. He always texts me if he goes downstairs." "I know." She turned. "You know?" Min-jae held up June's phone. The cracked screen displayed one unsent message, typed at 8:14 p.m. "Noona, men from hotel, said you fainted, taking me to you." Seo-rin closed her eyes. "They used my name." "Yes." Her hands curled into fists, because they knew he'd trust that. Min-jae said, "Look at me." She did. "We will get him back." The certainty in his voice almost broke her. Almost. Instead, she asked the only thing that mattered. "Alive?" His answer came with no pause. "Yes." Why she believed him, she did not know. Maybe because fear had already taken too much. Maybe because he spoke like a man who had built his life around promises no one else was strong enough to make. Do-hyun entered. CTV from the street shows a black van without plates. 2 men. One used a hotel engineering pass. Park, Seo-rin thought again. Or one of Park's people? Min-jae asked. Phone signal. June's device was disabled 2 kilometers away, near the river warehouses. Seo-rin grabbed her bag. Then let's go. Min-jae blocked the doorway. No. Her voice shook with fury. Move. He did not. You go there emotional, they use you. They already are using me, which is why you stay where I can control variables. I am not one of your variables. That hit. He stepped closer. No, you are the reason this is personal. The apartment went quiet. Even Do-hyun looked away. Seo-rin stared at him, thrown off balance by the honesty in the sentence. Min-jae lowered his voice. Listen carefully. Men who stage thefts at galas and kidnap deaf boys do not want a clean negotiation. They want leverage. If you arrive desperate, they gain it. And if I stay here while my brother is afraid, he will be afraid for less time if I do this right. Her eyes burned. She hated tears, hated witnesses to them more. I should have sent him to our aunt in Busan last week, she whispered. Min-jae said, regret is a luxury for later. His phone buzzed. He listened, then ended the call. Park has accessed Warehouse 17 on the Old River Dock through a shell company used by Hanyul Cleaning Services, he said. He's there now. Seo-rin inhaled sharply. Min-jae looked at Do-hyun. Deploy. Do-hyun nodded and moved fast. Seo-rin grabbed Min-jae's sleeve. Take me. He looked down at her hand, then at her face. You stay in the second vehicle. That is not taking me. It is closer than I intended, she almost argued. Then she remembered June's last unsent text and nodded once. The convoy left in rain. Black SUVs cut through night and river mist. City lights thinned. Warehouses rose like dead factories from the shoreline. Seo-rin sat in the second vehicle, gripping the seatbelt so tightly her fingers hurt. Through the windshield, she could see Min-jae's car ahead. At Warehouse 17, doors stood half open. Floodlights burned. Too visible, Seo-rin thought. Too arranged. A trap. Min-jae's convoy stopped. He got out first. She watched from behind dark glass as he walked forward alone. Park emerged near the warehouse entrance holding an umbrella. That was somehow worse than holding a gun. Even from a distance, his politeness was visible. Min-jae said something. Park answered with a nervous little bow. Then two men dragged June into view. Seo-rin's hand flew to her mouth. June's wrists were bound. A cloth gag hung loose around his neck. His eyes searched wildly until they landed on the convoy. On her. He could not hear, but he knew. She shoved the SUV door. A bodyguard caught her arm. Please, ma'am. Min-jae lifted one hand slightly without turning. Wait. Park spoke louder now, smug because he believed the distance protected him. Director Cha requests the drives and the certificate. In exchange, the boy goes home. Min-jae replied, You kidnapped a child for paperwork. Park smiled tightly. I prefer to say we are correcting a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Min-jae echoed. Yes, about class, about place, about which people matter enough to protect. Seo-rin saw Min-jae go very still. That silence frightened Park too late. Send the boy first, Min-jae said. Park shook his head. The bag first. Min-jae held up a small leather case. Seo-rin's stomach dropped. He had brought it. Of course he had. Because promises were easier to make than to keep in a clean way. Park motioned to one of the men. June was shoved forward 3 steps, then stopped. Min-jae took 2. A red dot appeared on one of the floodlights. Then another. Then 3 more. Seo-rin stared. Snipers. Not on Min-jae. On Park's men. Min-jae had not come unprepared. Park realized it a second later. His face changed. Sir, let's not do anything foolish. Min-jae's voice carried across wet concrete. You framed a woman. You abducted her brother. You thought I would bargain as if we were still inside a boardroom. He took one more step. Release the boy. Park swallowed. If I do, I'm dead. Min-jae's answer was merciless. That outcome does not depend on what you choose in the next 5 seconds. Park panicked. He pulled a pistol. Seo-rin screamed June's name, though June could not hear her. Everything broke at once. A shot cracked. not Park's. His gun flew from his hand. Min Jae moved. So did his men. June dropped to the ground as a bodyguard tackled one captor. Another went down under a rain of fists. Park tried to run. Min Jae caught him by the collar and slammed him against a loading pillar hard enough to rattle metal. Seo-rin was already out of the SUV, sprinting. Someone shouted after her. She did not care. She reached June first. He was shaking but unhurt. She ripped the binding from his wrists and pulled him into her arms. He clung to her with desperate strength. Across the dock, Park coughed blood and fear. Min Jae stood over him. "What did Director Cha tell you to recover?" he asked. Park looked away. Min Jae hit the pillar beside Park's head once with his fist. Metal rang. Park flinched violently. "What else?" Min Jae repeated. "Did she tell you to recover?" Park cracked. "The paper from the seal," he gasped. "And the old will amendment. She said if the girl found the box, she might find the amendment next." Seo-rin's blood ran cold. "What amendment?" she called. Park's eyes flicked to her. Too late. Min Jae saw the truth in his panic. There was still another document. A document powerful enough to justify kidnapping. The next revelation was not on any drive. It was still missing. June. June slept at Min Jae's estate that night under guard. It was the only place Seo-rin believed he would be safe. The room they gave him overlooked a quiet garden, soft lighting, warm blankets, no river, no broken elevators, no fear in the hallway. Seo-rin sat beside the bed until his breathing deepened. He woke once and signed with trembling hands. "Are we in trouble because of Mum?" Seo-rin swallowed. She signed back slowly. "We are in trouble because Mum told the truth." June looked at her for a long moment. Then he signed. "So tell it louder." After he slept again, Seo-rin found Min Jae in the library. It was past 2 in the morning. Rain still brushed the windows. Files covered the long table. Do-hyun stood with 2 lawyers at the far end. A printer hummed. Min Jae dismissed them with a glance when Seo-rin entered. She closed the door behind her. "What is a will amendment?" she asked. He leaned against the table. Fatigue showed in the shadow under his eyes, but nowhere else. "A modification to my father's estate instruments. It could concern shares, trusteeship, voting power, guardianship, many things. Why would Director Cha want it? If it names your mother." Seo-rin stared. "You think it does?" "I think my father left more protection in place than anyone admitted." She crossed her arms. "You still haven't explained why my mother had 9% of the hotel." Min Jae looked at the ceiling once, as if reaching backward. "When I was 16, my father began moving personal assets out of visible family channels. Quietly, he said some people near him had started loving money more than blood. Your uncle, and others." He met her eyes. "My father trusted 2 employees more than half our relatives, his driver, and your mother." Seo-rin frowned. "Why my mother?" "She saw everything, heard everything, said little, took nothing. That makes people like my father listen." He continued. "After the attack on me, he must have concluded that normal succession structures were compromised. If I died, my uncle could dominate the board. If your mother held a silent block of shares, she could delay that outcome." Seo-rin processed it slowly. "So my mother was a safeguard?" "Yes. And nobody told her daughter. I doubt that was your mother's first preference either." Seo-rin looked away. "She always said cleaning teaches you what people think is beneath them. Dirt, labor, witnesses." Min Jae watched her. "My mother died believing she left me a burden. She left you leverage. That's rich coming from a billionaire." "It is still true." A fragile silence settled. Then Seo-rin asked, "What if the will amendment names me?" Min Jae did not answer immediately. "When my father was dying," he said at last, "he called for several files that never reached his bedside." Her eyes sharpened. "Taken by who?" "I don't know, but Director Cha controlled access that week." "So she stole from a dying man?" "Yes." Seo-rin let out a breath that was almost a laugh and almost despair. Your family is exhausting. Min-jae looked at her. His face softened in a way it never did in public. I know. She noticed then the small old scar along his side, visible through the gap in his open collar where his shirt had shifted. The scar from the night she saved him. He followed her gaze. You did that, he said. I saved your life. I did not stab you. His mouth moved again, definitely a smile this time. It vanished when Do-hyun knocked once and entered. Sir, Park is willing to testify. Against whom? Director Cha. And your uncle? Seo-rin asked. Because he's scared? Because, Do-hyun said, Director Cha tried to have him killed on the way to medical care. Min-jae's eyes turned to stone. Do-hyun continued. Also, we found a bank safe deposit box registered to Han Myok under a secondary identity, accessed monthly until her death, not since. Seo-rin straightened. Where? Downtown, Seongbuk branch. Min-jae was already reaching for his coat. The will amendment, Seo-rin said. He nodded once. At last, the dead were ready to speak plainly. Gu.